It is too late to turn away from this video as the endless and creative video known as Robocraft has begun. So to start off, a while back, RoboCraft has finally released a tutorial for Robocraft, and like not just any kind of video, but like an actual in-game tutorial for the game. Before I forget, this is actually a background footage instead of a live commentary, and the reason why I'm doing a post commentary video is because I feel like that the live commentary I did for the footage that you guys are watching, it failed to cover the tutorial as well as I wanted to. Hold up, drink. And also, most of the time, I usually make my videos organic in terms of commentary, or in other words, no script or anything like that. Again, usually. And so for this video, I'm basically redoing the commentary and just doing the post commentary thing with Jake. Just post the commentary on the video on the. Okay, and I'm just confusing myself and you guys. That aside, as I mentioned earlier, a tutorial has been added to Robocraft, but not surprisingly, it came with a plethora of problems. Even though at the very least I covered the very basics of the game, it did leave out a few stuff. First off, what it left out is that it left out players about teaching them how to use energy. It left out how to recycle or buy parts, and it also didn't teach players about the color gun. I know it's a cosmetic, but still. And it also didn't teach you about how you can have multiple weapons. And it just goes on and on and on. Oh, and they didn't introduce mirror mode either. So yeah, there's also that. And not to mention, a few days, if not a week after the tutorial was initially released, FreeJam made a thread talking about how they kept tracking how many new players were entering Robocraft, and they're about. And as the tutorial was still on. Oh, by the way, these are guesstimated numbers from what I remember. Because right now I don't have the thread with me, and because of that I can't exactly cite the information that I'm talking from. Unless one of you guys can find it for me, that'd be great. Like, I know it exists. I know I read it somewhere on the forums. If one of you guys can find it for me, that'd be great. Anyways, so FreeJam had a data that they shared with the public. And there were about 8,000 newcomers, again, approximate numbers. And of the 8,000 newcomers, only 1,000 of them actually played the tutorial. And the reason why most likely for that is because when you log in for the first time as a new user, you're not directed to the tutorial or popped up out of the tutorial. In other words, players are notified of a tutorial. And even those that did play, only about 600, 700, even 500 players actually finished the tutorial, while the rest just kind of quit midway somewhere. And actually, the part where they quit the most was the part where the player was told to move with the WASD key in the edit mode and move towards the gun. That's the part where the most players left the tutorial. Hold up, I'm getting a drink. And I think the possible reason for that is because not Minecraft, pardon me. Robocraft is a game that's clearly not just played by Americans or in just English speakers. It's played by language speakers of many others like German, Korean, Taiwanese, you name it really. Again, there's a lot of different language users that are playing Robocraft, and because of that, I feel like players may also could be struggling a little bit with the tutorial, and there were a bunch of other things that are left out as well, such as how there's actually energy in the game, where energy as in the energy that's used for basically. Okay, I'm overcomplicating it, but energy that's used for shooting your guns and such. And players are only taught how to use mech legs, and they'll only shoot against mech leg, and they fight only the mech leg bot, a mech leg bot, and the tutorial. And they didn't even teach about the color gun, no multi weapon, no mirror mode, no buying, no recycling, and it just goes on. It left a lot of stuff out in the blue. Again, it teaches a very basic, so that's most def it that's at least something. And on top of that, FreeJam at the very least also admits that the tutorial does need work. So so okay, thank God I got over that way. So with these problems that exist right now or did exist for those that are watching in the far future, allow me to suggest a few ideas that could potentially improve the tutorial as a whole. First off, I think the Robocraft tutorial needs, since Robocraft has players from all over the world, I think that there needs to be less text in the tutorial and more visual aid. And when I mean visual aid, I mean there should be a picture that pops up showing like a picture, let's say a picture of a keyboard showing players what keys to press, like maybe like WASD to move, shift to press. I mean they'll be told that the players won't be necessarily told to press these keys, but there'll just be a picture popping up and it will highlight the keys needed for the tutorial that the tutorial wants you to press. More water. And what's good thing about visual pictures for tutorials is that it means you have to translate less text, and it also means less work. Less work for the devs logically and naturally, and it removes a more or less need for translation if they wanted to go visual aid entirely. Again, having some text is fine. It's just that if there are more visual aid, like if the players were shown where the WASD keys are on the keyboard, because there are countries out there that doesn't have the English letter keyboards on them, and because of that, some people may not know where WASD even is, or again, because of the fact that the tutorial is in English, they may not even know what they're supposed to press, because they just simply cannot read English. And because of that, I think visual aid will help players understand more on what they're supposed to press without the need to translate so much. And another thing, take out the good job well done after pretty much everything. Like, why is that's the exact opposite of how you want to make a good tutorial. Even Extra Critics covered that in his design club video for Portal. Like, that's the exact opposite you want to do when you want to make a good tutorial. Just take that out. There's absolutely no good reason to keep that in. Just no. And number 2, have the tutorials split into different sections or levels, or have different set of tutorials. Okay, hold up, my water. And make additional tutorials unlock when they're needed. So the way how tutorials should be introduced to new players is that it should be introduced step by step, and having everything thrown at their face at once is just a big no. So what I think they should do is make players so that they have to finish tutorial 1 first, and then after finishing tutorial 1 they can do tutorial 2 and so on. And after they finish, let's say up to 3 or 4 tutorials, the 5th tutorial will be, let's say, just an example, the 5th tutorial will be locked until they until they acquire their first aerofoil or helicopter, or basically any new movement parts, or possibly weapon, or let's say they receive their first module, or so on. Or maybe the next tutorial level requires you to reach a certain level first before you can play a tutorial. And the reason why the tutorial should be split into sections is because if a new player were to be thrown like pretty much everything about the game at once, it would be so overwhelming for them, especially since Robocraft is a game about engineering and trying to build the most efficient bots, and of course creativity is still there to an extent as well. So yeah, so so, so it will be like this. Tutorial one is would teach players about teach players about building, like being able to move in the edit section and stuff. They would be also be able to talk how to recycle, how to buy, and like how to also paint their bot. And most importantly, they should be taught about mirror mode. Oh, and one more thing, I just remembered. Players are not taught how to remove blocks. I can't believe I just caught that. Players are not taught in the tutorial how to remove blocks. That is a even though it shouldn't, even though with a little experimenting it shouldn't be too difficult to learn. There are people out there that are they just learn very slowly. So so for so when it comes to that, every detail would matter. So and tutorial two would teach players about combat, which is basically the other half of the existing tutorial. It would teach players how to move what not just one kind of bot, but players will have to move let's say two or three different kind of bots to see what movement how movement types are different from one another. Excuse me. Like in the like in the first tutorial, no, not in the first tutorial. Like in tutorial two, in the combat where they learn about combat and controlling their drone or bot, they would learn to play with the wheels first, and then after they learn to play with a little bit of the wheels, they'll be shown how to use mech bots and if and optionally tank tracks as well. And also and it will be the tutorial that also, as I said, combat tutorial. It would teach a player how to switch weapons, how to shoot, obviously, and how to manage energy, and so on. And tutorial three would teach players about utilizing the garage, a little bit of the UI because that helps, and about the bot control options. For those that don't know, there's a little there's a little corkscrew icon just above the garage. If you click on that, it will bring a pop-up showing like how you want to control the bots. They should be taught that as well. And last but not least, they should also be taught that there is a factory or a CRF or a community robot factory that they can click on, so they can just go straight there. And as for the rest of the tutorials, really, I mean, like pretty much anything can go from there. And and again, it's important to make sure to not put too much information within a single tutorial because otherwise it will be overwhelming for the new player. But not too little to the point where they're left in the blue or where it's like, wait, what? Wait, so like basically, not too little information to the point where they're left in a disarray. And lastly, the tutorial. And lastly, this is more of a balance problem rather than a tutorial problem. But in the tutorial, having mech legs, instead of having players place and use mech legs first, I think they should be using wheels first. I know wheels are the worst movement parts, and that's why they really need improvement. I don't understand why Freedom has ignored them for so long. Like, hold up, water. And the way how mech legs are on like the cover of Robocraft, mech legs are at the login screen. They're in some of the they're in one of the tutorial. They're on the tutorial icon or selection. It gives new players the implication that mech legs are the strongest things in the game, and naturally, this tends to make other movement parts obsolete in match when it comes to matchmaking new players against other new players. You would just see pretty much mech legs everywhere and nothing of other stuff. And this is a very counterproductive thing to do, especially if you want other movement parts or other movement types specifically to be as viable as others. And on top of that, the mech legs are actually a little bit not necessarily overpowered, but a little bit too strong compared to other movement parts. And the only downsides that the mech legs currently have is that they're just really huge, and they cost a lot of CP, and that's pretty much where it ends. That's pretty much the only two downsides, really. That's kind of it. And while cruisers, they require at least about three, if not three, but more usually, at least 4 wheels to be functional, and 2 steering wheels to be able to have more acceleration, mobility options. And tank tracks, they would need at least 2 tank tracks on the sides, or at least 3, or yeah, but at least 2 or 3. But mech legs, they can just function with 1 mech leg. I mean, I'm not saying it's a bad thing that mech legs can function with one leg, but what tends to tease me is that when it comes to bots with multiple mech legs, usually 2, when 1 leg is severed off, it seems to be able to balance perfectly fine. It's almost as if they have no center of mass. And the only way to show that they have any center of mass is to basically make the center of mass way to the extreme to other parts of the bot. And that's the only way to show that it has any center of mass at all. But on majority of the time, that wouldn't happen. And because of that, I think mech legs are gonna need a little nerf in terms of engineering, because mech legs, they have very little engineering. They have very few downsides as they do. And not to mention, they're receiving a huge weight buff. And when I mean huge weight buff, I mean to the point where players will be able to make flying mechs out of it, or already has. Not to mention, this video is being this commentary is being recorded just a day before this mech leg buff is released. So seriously, why are they doing that? But yeah, anyways, there should be a center of mass for mech legs, or at least a more noticeable center of mass. Like, for instance, a two-legged mech leg with a reasonable amount of weight on top. If one of the legs are missing, it would slightly tilt to the right. The performance isn't too noticeable, but it will slightly tilt. But it will be still able to still sustain balance, unless it tries to walk up, or is forced to walk in a very steep terrain. And there should be a form of carry mass that basically hinders jumping and movement speed, because at the moment, unless you put in a lot of weight, it's just not there. It really isn't. I'm not saying that mech legs shouldn't carry a lot of weight. I mean, I personally think it's fine, but they shouldn't be able to carry so much weight to the point where they can balance basically perfectly with just 1 mech leg when it normally has 2. So again, or alternatively, they can just buff other movement parts as well. That's always an option. But that is all I have to say for you guys. I really appreciate for you guys. No. Forget what I said. I don't appreciate you guys for watching. No. I want you guys to unsub from this channel if that's even an option. Wait, is that an unsub option for people that already isn't subscribed to my channel? Well, nope. Well, I guess you have to press the subscribe button to unsub. I don't know. YouTube is very confusing sometimes.